Hai, saya Adwa. Saya seorang ahli terapi pertuturan dan bahasa di Malaysia. Saya sering menghadapi kesukaran untuk mengenal pasti masalah disleksia dalam kalangan kanak-kanak sekolah. Di Malaysia, kami sangat memerlukan alat penilaian untuk mengenal pasti masalah disleksia yang lebih sesuai dengan budaya dan bahasa Melayu.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lo Hui Min, an Associate Professor in Special Education. Dyslexia often involves difficulty with phonological processing, which can impact reading fluency and comprehension. A thorough assessment can help identify these specific challenges. I have seen how tailored intervention can make a world of difference for students with dyslexia. But to provide the right support, we need accurate assessment that pinpoint their unique needs.
MBU membolehkan kami menilai perkembangan bahasa dan literasi kanak-kanak dengan lebih tepat. Alat penilaian ini juga membantu kami untuk mengenal pasti objektif pemulihan dan intervensi yang sesuai secara khusus dalam meningkatkan kemahiran membaca mereka. Dengan panduan yang lebih tepat ini, kami dapat memberikan bimbingan yang lebih berkesan serta membuka peluang bagi kanak-kanak untuk mencapai potensi kemahiran membaca mereka yang sebenar.
As co-author of MBU, I have dedicated years to understand dyslexia and developing effective diagnostic tools. With MBU, we are able to assess various aspects of a child's reading abilities according to the standards of International Dyslexia Association, allowing us to pinpoint areas where they may be struggling with reading.
Every child deserves
The chance
To succeed.
Hi, hello, good evening. Let me pin me so that you can see me. So welcome to our MBU webinar today. Yeah? So it's good to see many familiar names here. So now I'm going to share my slide. Okay, so I think most of you will be very busy at the moment preparing for either Chinese New Year or recovering from the New Year break, yeah? And very soon we are going to festival break. Okay, so today is actually a very exciting moment because we are going to share with you some of the early insights that we get from our 2025 normative study. So today we will share about the main key findings and also some of the early insights that we get, and also how this can help us to understand better reading and spelling in early primary school. Yeah. Okay, so I can see that there are still people signing in. Yeah, good evening, everyone. Okay, so for some of you, this might be the first time you heard about MBU or My Baca Uji. So My Baca Uji is an assessment tool that offers a guideline, yeah, for identifying dyslexia, informed by theoretical principle and empirical evidence. So this is the list of developers, researchers, and also co-authors here. So we have worked together in the past 10 to 20 years on how to understand reading difficulties among Malay Malay learning children. So children who are learning Malay language in school, especially in the aspect of reading. So MBU is a very passionate project initiated by Professor Li Lei Hua. So she has started this study actually more than 20 years ago. and I joined her team when I came back from Australia after I finishing my doctorate study in Australia. So I joined her team, and at that time, I did participate in a few studies also related to dyslexia, yeah, which is the preliminary studies for MBU. And then later on, Dr. Ann continued to assist Professor Lee on the final stage of MBU development, and also they work closely together to produce Nadi Bacha, which is an intervention program for MBU. Okay, so that was the history. So for those of you who haven't seen MBU before, this is how the kit contains here. We have the bilingual manual, we have the stimulus book, we also have the recording form, and we have our MBU reinforcement kit that we refresh or renew every year. So every year we have a different themes, and now we are still thinking about 2026, what it will be the theme year for our MBU kit. So MBU kits also come with a 6-hour training. It's a full day training. So these were the photos from our past trainings. So we have deliver, I think maybe close to 30 trainings since 2024 year. So these were all the assessors who had attended our training and become our certified MBU assessor. So MBU is the first formal assessment tool in Malaysia, focusing on detecting dyslexia. Yeah? So it is grounded by 20 years of research, and the preliminary studies of MBU had been published here in more than 10 SSCI journals. Okay, so at the moment, we have more than 150 assessors throughout Malaysia. So you can find our assessors in our brimbo.com.my website. Yeah? So as you can see, our assessors are from whole Malaysia. Yeah? We have almost covered all the states in Malaysia. Yeah? So these were our proud assessors who are now using MBU in their service. Okay, so MBU is designed to help professionals and educators to identify children that need support in reading, especially if the reading difficulties that they are experiencing are associated with the condition of dyslexia, yeah, which is the neurodevelopmental condition of reading difficulties. So it was designed to be used for children between age 7 to 10 who had received at least 2 years formal instruction in Bahasa Malaysia. So the first normative study of MBU was done here with 255 children in Malaysia, and last year we conducted the second normative study with 322 students in Malaysia. Yeah? So MBU is to be administered individually, yeah, with paper and pencil. But last year, we also had developed the digital version of MBU. Okay, so this was our reinforcement kit for last year, and this is our digital MBU that we are going to launch this year. So for tonight, I'm going to share with you some of the preliminary study from our 2025 normative research here. In this study, it involved more than 10 schools, about 322 students, and we also have another component of the study that involves 16 private practitioners. Okay, and from that study, we have collected more than 80 clinical cases. Yeah, so perhaps next month, the webinar next month, we can share some insights from our clinical studies. So this is our 2025 normative study. As you can see, we have went to 10 schools across Penang and Johor, and there were different school types we have 4 Sekolah Kebangsaan, 4 SJKC, and 2 SJKT. So altogether, 322 students have participated in this study, which utilized the MBU Malay version, MBU English version, and also they all participate in IQ assessment. Yeah. So these were some of the photos that we have taken during our research study, our field work here. So as you can see, in this study, we utilized the digital version of MBU, and that really make the assessment very efficient. So each assessment is about 15 minutes to 20 minutes, and then straight away we can generate report, and can also auto score the scores from each different subtest. So very, very convenient. So in all the 10 schools that we went, we also empower the teachers to conduct MBU. So as you can see, other than collecting the data, we also provide training to the guru pemulihan, and then to also help them to understand how they can conduct reading assessment more systematically. So there were 10 guru pemilihan that also participated in this research, and they were also a very valuable research members here in this project. Okay, let me move to the next slide. I don't know why my slide cannot move. Something is not right. Okay, why I have an arrow? Let me see. Sorry, let me go back. Okay, where were we? We were in the normative study. Okay, so let me continue from here. So this is the profile of the students who participate in this 2025 normative study year. So we have half female students and also about half male students, and the data were collected from Penang and Johor, and these were the schools participated, and each school we try to engage like around 30 students. Okay, so for all the students, we also obtained their tahap penguasaan bahasa Malaysia, BI, Science, and Maths here, and you can see that the data actually portray that this is a normal representation of the students that participated in this study. So the age range is from 6 years old, 10 months to 7 years old and 11 months. Yeah. And we collected the data using a systematic sampling approach to ensure that in each school that we went to, the students that we assess, they represent the normal distribution. Okay, so let me see. Oh, okay, it's the research instruments. So in this study year, 2025 normative study, we use 2 instruments. Our existing My Baca Uji Malay version, and our new English version that we are going to launch this year. So for those assessors that already are in our pool, you can upgrade now your assessment to become bilingual version, to have PN and English. And then very soon, before June this year, we will announce how you can upgrade your assessment tool, and also we will let you know how you can get access to the digital system to make your assessment even more efficient. Okay, so MBU is designed to detect the condition of reading difficulties or to be more accurate, specific reading difficulties here, so dyslexia. And the design was based on the 3 IDA guidelines, which is children with dyslexia, they have to fulfill all these 3 criteria, which are word recognition, difficulties in word recognition, difficulties in phonological processing, and also discrepancy of reading abilities and cognitive abilities. So our principle of design, we incorporated those subtests that correspond with these three criteria. So for the criteria 1, we have 4 subtests, and for criteria 2, we also have another 6 subtests here. So later I will explain more about these subtests when I go to the finding. Okay, so which means those children that we capture as having difficulties in criteria 1, these are the children that show that they have difficulties to identify and to decode word. While if their results show that they have difficulties in criteria 2, which means these are the children who are weaker in doing phonological decoding or processing, yeah? While criteria 3 was captured using a checklist format. So this is roughly the principle of design for our MBU. Okay, so let me see if there is any question in the chat box. Okay, so tonight we have 3 questions that I would like to to ask you, and also we can look at the data to see how our data show us the result here to answer these 3 questions. So the first question is, because since now we have the English MBU, we want to know that if the BM and the BI English show the same pattern. And then the second thing is, if we are focusing on the BM reading, what could be the factors that affect the reading score? And the third is a snapshot of how MBU can help to spot dyslexia risk. So basically, in the next 1 hour, these are the 3 questions that we want to ask here from the early insights that we get from our normative study. Okay, so first of all, I would like to show you our overall result from our normative study with 322 students. So the red color graph shows the BM reading scores, and the English bars show their overall English reading score that we capture using our MBU Malay and MBU English tool here. So any differences that you can see? Let me see if all of you are paying attention. Okay, so from these two charts here, if you look at their shapes, any unique differences that you can see between the red color bar, which represent the BM reading score, and also the English bars that represent the English reading score. Both data were collected using our MBU tool. Yeah. Any differences? Anyone want to try? I know there are some assessors here, and for those that you haven't become assessor, maybe you already have experience in doing research. So let's try to interpret any differences that you can see between this graph. Anyone? Still very shy, yeah. Okay, so for this, I will try to answer for you first lah, but the rest you have to answer. So one difference that you can observe is you can see here that is 2 peaks in the Malay data that we obtained, but there is only one peak here in the English data. Yeah. Very good. Okay. Yeah, the English data show a very smooth curve here, but the Malay data show there are 2 peaks. So what does that 2 peaks means? Basically, what this data is trying to tell us is for BM reading, is very threshold based here. So once you can decode, once you can read, you will all come to this group. Once you haven't mastered decoding or reading, you will be under this group. So the data actually show us that the children abilities is reflecting 2 distinct groups. One is the reader and one is the non-proficient reader. While English radar is smooth, it doesn't show us that. So what we can see from this overall data is English reading is an accumulative skill, while Malay reading is you can or you cannot. Okay, so we are going to see more data that explain why this happened. Let's zoom in more to look at our MBU results here. So the top is our criteria 1, which is the word recognition component, while the below one is our phonological processing component. So if you can still recall, for the phonological processing component, we actually include fluency, we also include digit span, and we also include elision, cementation, and blending, which are subtests that portray phonological decoding skills. So together, this is the component for criteria 1, and this is the component for criteria 2. So we can see for the component of criteria 1, which is reflecting word identification skill or word recognition skill. So this again shows that it's very clear. When you are reading Malay words, it's either you can or you cannot. There is no something in between. So if you can, if recalling back on how you are reading Malay words, as long as you can decode, you can read. As long as you can recognize the suku kata, you can read. Even though some of the words you might not understand, but you can read, and you will be jumping from non-proficient reader to proficient reader as soon as you are able to decode the suku kata in Malay words. Yeah, so that is what it means. So Malay spelling. Okay, and why is it so? That is because Malay orthographic or Malay spelling is very consistent. So once you can blend the suku kata, you know the cementation of the syllabus border, you will be proficient BM reader. Yeah, it has very transparent or consistent letter sounds correspondence. It only requires blending skills, and then once you can decode fluently, you are able to read. Okay, even those words you cannot recognize or not recognize, you cannot understand, but you still can sound it out. But for English, the scenario is totally different. So the reason is English is a less transparent language, which means English for every letters or every syllabus combination of English, sometimes there could be different sounds. Yeah. So for English, you cannot just rely on decoding skills. You also have to have strong vocabulary, because you have to know like this is sound as cause, or this is sound as another sound, no? Like the word can have multiple sounds. So you need to know the context that these words is being used. So you really have to have the comprehension there, and also the vocabulary skills there. And you also need to have the awareness whether it is a prefix or this is a suffix. And that is the reason English actually is a combination of skill to read English here. But for Malay, pretty much you require decoding at the very early stage. The comprehension will come later. Yeah. So for English reading, it doesn't jump from non-proficient to proficient as what you see in the graph previously, but it rises gradually. And the reason it rises gradually is because English reading is slightly more complex than Malay reading. Yeah. And because it involves many skills, so it becomes more gradual rather than the stiff jump as you can observe in the Malay reading data. So this is something that we learn from our MBU data here. And our word reading and our word spelling, both data also support this pattern, where you can see two peaks in the Malay word reading and Malay word spelling, but you don't see that obvious pattern in English word reading and English word spelling. Okay, so that is the first finding. Do BM and BR reading show the same pattern? So the answer is not. So they are rather unique and they are quite influenced by the language characteristics. Yeah. So, but however, they do tap on the same fundamental skill, which is decoding. So when a child is experiencing difficulties in reading Malay word, definitely the same difficulties the child will encounter in reading English word. Yeah, especially with respect to phonological decoding. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, I apologize if it sounds a bit dull, but if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat box. Okay, so why we have to understand these differences? Because this is to answer a lot of questions that the parents have. Like, someone try to ask a question? Okay, maybe someone forgot to unmute. Yeah, then I shall just continue. Okay, so why we have to understand this? This is very important to understand the questions that the parents have, because sometimes parents will ask, hey, my child cannot read BM, will my child also have problem in reading English, or vice versa? So that is the reason why we have to investigate on that, so that we can help professionals like you to answer the parents' question. Okay, so moving on, we want to look at reading and spelling. Okay, what we know about reading and spelling among these standard 1 children here that participate in our normative study. Okay, so to understand what contribute to differences in reading and spelling, so I would like to ask each of you, what do you think? No, from your teaching experience, from your experience supporting children to read, what factors could have contributed to differences in their reading and spelling? Exposure, their background, or any specific factors that you can think of? Generalization issue, they read but they cannot generalize. Yeah, so that would be the effect, yeah, of what contribute to their reading. But let's focus on word reading. Generalization might be more when they are moving to advanced reading, yeah. But at the very early stage, differences between word sounds and letter name, they can verbalize the words, but they cannot spell it properly. Okay, so yeah, so all these here must be teachers, therapists, who are working closely with the young kids to help them to learn how to read and spell. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so some questions is, oh, so I would think some of you are thinking about the child cannot map the sounds to the letter. The child are not familiar to the name, their vocabulary, their language. Okay, so what could have contributed to that in the real world? Okay, so we explore a few things from our research. Yeah, so we explore demographic. Would male and female, they will being a girl or in a boy affect how fluent you read, how effective you can read aloud words that you see? This is one questions that researchers like to explore. Would age affect your reading fluency, your reading efficacy? Will the type of school that you go, whether you go to school that only use one language, or you go to schools that integrate multi-language, whether that will affect your proficiency of reading Malay and English words, and also your language background, whether you are from a family who are speaking Malay as the first language, Mandarin as the first language, or Tamil as the first language. Would that affect how effective you are able to read Malay words? Yeah, so that is something that we explore. Okay, moving on, we are also interested to know, on top of these demographic patterns, would IQ, Okay, which means how smart you are will also affect how effective you could read. Okay, so this is the second questions that we explore. And the third question is back to our core, which is what you all are mentioning in the chat box. The foundation of reading, decoding skill. To what extent it will affect your reading ability. So these are different factors that we explore here in our analysis, and we look at word reading and also word spelling. Okay, so now looking at all these sets of factors that we have, now you choose. Okay, you can guess now what factors that you think contribute most to reading. Now you can all put down in the chat box. Try to guess. What factors among all the factors that we are seeing on the slides that you think would contribute most to reading? Let me see. First language, the model 3, phonological processing. Wow. I think you all are really know the expert here. Okay, very, very, very good. Okay, so you are right. Okay, but not only know that you are right, we want to know to what extent you are right, right? So research will support your perspective. Okay, so let's see the results here. So almost all of you guessed right, no? Wow, we have a group of experts here. Okay, so yeah, so this is our number that support your assumption. Okay, just now many of you make the hypothesis, right? Phonological skills affect reading, but our study, we want to let you know to what extent this is important. Okay, so we have all these numbers that tell us lah. So remember just now we have 3 model, right? So these are shows the percentage that this model will affect the outcome. Yeah. So as you can see, when we put in the demographic patterns, only 17%. Okay, when demographic plus IQ, it becomes 30%. When demographic plus IQ plus phonological decoding, it jumps to 44%. Means all the variation that you are seeing here among these 300 kids, 44% can be explained by model D. Okay, so what is model D? Model 3, model 3, yeah? So let's look at model 3, which is the one at the bottom here. We put in gender, state, first language, IQ, and also criteria 2BM, which is our phonological processing here. The score representing phonological processing in our MBU. So in this model 3, in fact, there is only one with significant relationship, means this is actually the one and only factor that is most significant in affecting word reading in BM. So the finding from our study is, no, you are right. Phonological processing could be considered as a very important, not only very important, but could be actually the only factor. Even when we compare with IQ, like just now, IQ jumped to 30, right? But when the phonological processing come, actually IQ doesn't contribute much here to the reading outcome. Okay, so our findings support our theoretical assumption and also your view that phonological processing is actually the fundamental of reading, yeah, especially for Malay word reading. Okay, so next, do you think that the same goes for BM? For spelling, word spelling in BM, do you think that it is also phonological processing skill or gender or maybe age or maybe school type, first language? What do you think? Oh, okay, very confident, yeah, all of you. Yes, the data actually shows that you are right. Okay, what is the differences between the data that you see now compared to just now? Remember, model 1 is just the demographic. So when we put in demographic, it explains 17%. Yeah. When we put in demographic and IQ, it jumps to 30%. But for spelling, when we put in phonological processing, it jumps to 70%. That's huge, okay? So spelling really require phonological processing skill. It is probably can be considered as the pure skill here that reflecting ability of phonological processing. You see how much it can contribute. Okay, so this again support the importance here for us to teach phonological processing for our children who are learning to read in Malay, because it is so obviously important. And how important it is, we have our real data to show us. Okay, so that is to answer our research questions number 2 here. What affect BM, reading, and spelling? So the answer is phonological processing. Okay, so the next question would be, now knowing all these, the differences between BM and BI, we know BM, when we do assessment, what we are looking for is actually not a growth pattern, but what we are looking for is actually a distinct categorization of fluent and non-fluent reader. And what contribute to this distinct categorization or differentiation is this thing called phonological processing. Okay, and how strong would this phonological processing explain to these differences in the performance? For word reading itself, it can contribute up to 40%. It can explain up to 40%, yeah. But for spelling, it can explain up to 70%. So this is exciting to know, yeah, how working on phonological processing itself might actually lead to a very important acquisition of reading skill in Bahasa, in regards of the child's background, gender, age, and so on. Okay, now moving on, question number 3 is, how can MBU spot dyslexia risk? So for those assessors, you know how we are use the systematic approach in MBU, combining the subtests to addressing the criteria to detect MBU. Okay, so again, back to the design of our MBU is based on these 3 criteria, which is whether we want to see any patterns or any evidence that the child is having problem in word recognition, and we want to see if there is any pattern or any evidence that a child is having difficulties in phonological processing. And last, we want to see if there is any evidence that shows us that the reading difficulties is in isolation of the other cognitive abilities here, or in other words, other cognitive abilities should be pretty intact. The child problem in learning is manifested solely in reading impairment. So with that criteria, then we can more confident say that a child's learning problem is associated with dyslexia. And why? Because dyslexia is a representation of specific learning disabilities. Yeah? For these children, their disability have to be very specific in nature, which means in this case is manifested predominantly in reading difficulties. Yeah. Okay, so knowing that this is the criteria that we have, when we use the tool to detect the risk of dyslexia, then we pretty much want to see that whether the word recognition, the child is showing any signs of at risk. For phonological processing, whether the child is showing sign of at risk, and for the reading ability and cognitive ability, because we will need to capture that the reading ability is way below the cognitive ability. So usually how we do it is we need to have evidence that the IQ of the child is pretty intact. Yeah, so these are the patterns that we need to see and know lah in the any case that we want to detect dyslexia. Yeah. Okay, so this is how using the data from 322 students, we come to this table. So now maybe you can also help me to interpret what information that you can get from this table. Yeah. For individual diagnosis, obviously, you can come to attend our MBU training. Then we will guide you through step-by-step interpretation of our MBU research, our MBU results, yeah, our MBU interpretation. But for this, because it's a research report, I would guide you to interpret how you can identify children at least of dyslexia, yeah? And this is the group finding. So on your left, you can see there are 3 categories here, which is our IQ results. So in our study, we use a portion from the Kaufman Brief Intelligence Test. Yeah, so we took 30 items from Kaufman Brief Intelligence Test, focusing on the non-verbal IQ. Okay, so from our result, we classify the students into 3 categories: those who are showing below average, average, and also above average using percentile rank. And from there, we also compare with our risk of our at-risk indicator from our criteria 1 and our at-risk indicator of criteria 2. Okay, so now I'm putting the summary of result here lah, for us to interpret using the cross-tabulation method. So, okay, now I want to ask you, this is the first finding that we get from this cross-tabulation analysis here. So, this is the first group. Those children who are below average for their IQ result, and they are at risk for criteria 1, which means they show difficulties in word recognition. And they are also at risk for criteria 2, which means these are the children that also show weakness or difficulties in phonological processing, yeah, based on our T-score cutoff. Here, we group them according to our T-score. So these are the children that all score below 40, yeah, for their T-score. So from there, I get 28 children, which is about 8.7% of them. So what do you think? What do these 28 children representing? Are these children no, are having high risk of dyslexia? Do you think these children are having high risk of dyslexia? Oh, okay, very good. Yeah, they are not, because remember just now, back to the 3 criteria, the first criteria, word recognition, has to be at risk. So this one correct. The second criteria, phonological processing, has to be at risk. So this one correct. But the third criteria for the IQ, it shouldn't be below average. Okay, so children at this group, they are not dyslexia, even though they are struggling reader, they couldn't read, they couldn't decode, but these are the children who are likely to be having problem in reading due to their intellectual disabilities. Yeah? So these are the children who are poor performing, but they are not dyslexia. So from the data that we get, other than answering our questions about dyslexia, now we know in those 10 schools that we go, which represent the normal distribution of children here in typical Malay schools, there could be as high as 8.7% of them that have learning problem due to LD. It's actually rather a lot here. Okay, but again, we probably need to also, I shouldn't say due to LD, but probably associate with learning disabilities or learning delay. Okay, some children might not actually have how to say, despite that their performance in the IQ tests are low, but we also have to consider that not all of them actually have intellectual impairment, because some of them are maybe very lack of exposure, and that also contribute to their poorer performance in the IQ test. Yeah, so we still don't know to what extent 8.7% of them have actually intellectual impairment, or they need to go to PPKI lah. But at least from the data, what we know that these are the children that have more overall learning disabilities or learning delay, learning difficulties, yeah, and their learning difficulties is not dyslexia specific. Okay, close file for this. Now we move to the second finding. Okay, so for this second finding, then we have to look back at our criteria to detect dyslexia. Then we know that for to be identifiable or to be associated with the condition of dyslexia, one of it is the word recognition have to be at risk. And then the criteria 2, which is phonological processing, also has to be at risk. And in this data that we have, this cover two groups of students here. One is those with average IQ, and one is above average IQ. Okay, and imagine even those with above average IQ, we have two who manifested obvious problem in word recognition and phonological processing. And then for those with average IQ, we found 11 that also show obvious problem in word recognition and also phonological processing. So these are the 13 students out of the 332 students that we assess here that show quite obvious signs of dyslexic condition based on these three criteria that we have lah. So what is the prevalence rate? Is 4%. But this is only pointing to those with high risk, obvious high risk of dyslexia. And the cutoff that we are currently using is 1 SD away lah from the norm. If we actually consider or less stringent criteria, so the prevalence rate will again shift lah. So this one we don't know yet, because we are also still in the middle to actually analyzing and reanalyzing our data until we are more sure about our final conclusion. Yeah. So at the moment, this is what we get so far lah, and we will also further verify this data here with our clinical data. Okay, so that is what we get from this 2025 study. This is not all. This is probably 10% yeah, only of our findings, because our finding is very rich. In this study, we have the Malay MBU, we have the English MBU, and we also have the IQ scores here. And we are thinking to do a lot of actually comparison and also building a lot of different models to look at how these different components interact. But at least based on the insights that I share with you today, what we could see is BM and BI, even though both are phonological language here, they are both phonological languages, but from this result, we can see that in fact, what affect their reading pattern could be actually quite different here. And especially when we look at the normative data, we can see quite obvious that Malay reading is split into two groups, and it's quite possible to differentiate weak versus fluent readers, while English reading is more spread out, so it's less clear-cut, to differentiate fluent and non-fluent reader. And from our analysis with the demographic patterns, with our IQ data, and also when we compare what predict word reading here using also the phonological processing indicators, we can get a very strong conclusion that BM reading and spelling are mainly driven by BM phonological decoding skills. So this has set the evidence here for us to focus on phonological awareness skills when we want to help children to read BM, yeah, and obviously for English as well, but BM seems to be even more important, yeah. And then our MBU tool can easily help us to spot dyslexia risk. Yeah? How do we identify these children? Is with the subtests that we have in MBU, then we can actually group the children according to their performance in word reading, their performance in phonological processing, and also we can compare this performance with their cognitive indicators. So that is the conclusion from today's presentation. Okay, so for those of you who are interested to actually become our MBU assessors, we welcome you to our upcoming training session here. The next session will be in USM, our Brimble HQ in USM, Penang, 6 March, which is like, is it sebelum Ramadan or during Ramadan? Yeah. And then the next one, for those from the Central Peninsular, you can join our training in USMKL campus on 29 March. And we seem to also have one session in Johor on 8 March, yeah? So these are the coming soon session lah. So if you are interested to know more, you can scan this QR code or you can request for this flyer from our MBU lead, yeah? And at the same time, this year in April, we are launching our Nadi Baca series. So some of you might ask just now, yeah, what is Nadi Baca? Actually, the previous name is MBI, My Baca Intervensi, but our developer has decided to change to a cuter name. So now this is called Nadi Baca. So it's a systematic instruction of reading that include the curriculum for 35 weeks reading support. It has altogether 6 levels, yeah? So it was also a product of about 10 years of research in USF. So finally, we are going to launch it this year, Nadi Baca, yeah? And the first training will be in Johor. And the training is actually sponsored by Putri Lagoon Rotary Club in Johor. So for those of you that you want more information about this training, you can also contact our MBU lead. Yeah? It's a fully sponsored program in this April. Okay, so don't miss it. So I think the program here is going to transform how you teach reading to our kids. Okay, so before we end, I would like to invite you to actually fill in our feedback form. So once you fill in and submit our feedback form, you will obtain a sigil. Okay, so and if you have any questions or you want to connect to us to organize any activity or training, you can also put down your idea or suggestion in the feedback form. Yeah. Okay, so let me look at the chat to see if there is any questions. Yeah, thank you. Our lead, Li Xiang, has shared with you the feedback form. Yeah. Okay, so there is a question about detect and intervene dyslexia for Mandarin language here. Unfortunately, our team in USM, we actually didn't look into Mandarin language lah. And the reason is because Mandarin is an orthographic language. So the reading processes is pretty different lah from decoding, yeah? Phonological language. So as we know from today's presentation, reading Malay words require phonological skills, which is decoding, that includes blending, semantics, sounds manipulation, and phonological awareness here. But reading of Mandarin is totally different. So for the time being, we do not focus on that lah. So I think at the moment, no, researching on Malay reading and English reading also already keep us very busy. Yeah. So but what I can feel is with my minimal knowledge about reading in Mandarin is actually depending more on memory skill. Okay, so to be good in reading in Mandarin, the child will need to have extensive experience of hearing the language. The child has to understand the language using the memory to understand the language and also using the memory to remember the sound of the language so that when they read, it will be a more automatic mapping of the sound and the word lah. Yeah, so the process is actually rather different lah, and from English and Malay reading, yeah. So yeah. So if I don't know, you will be interested to look at what factors contribute to Mandarin reading, yeah. I will assume the experience of the language plays a very important role. But not like Malay. Like I say, Malay is quite easy. As long as you know how to decode, you can read Malay, but not really for Mandarin lah. You need extensive experience of listening and reading the language. Can they apply this method of memorizing on learning to speak? Learning to speak Mandarin in English and Malay? This is a cute question. Can they apply this method of memorizing on learning? Maybe you can elaborate. You mean speaking Mandarin? Okay. Okay, so maybe I will take the last three questions here. Okay, let me see. The next question is, what is the name of the IQ test that we use in our research? For this research, we are using the nonverbal component of Kaufman brief IQ test here. Having experience throughout the study, what are the possible factors do you think would have impact their reading and spelling development, although the percentage are small? From our experience going to 10 school, we noticed that it's not really the school type, or it's not really that the child is learning the second language, but the support that the child has, yeah. Because we go to schools in the urban area and also the rural area. Some schools in the rural area, the kids are doing pretty well. While some schools in the urban area, the kids are actually doing less good. So, and we can see the performance actually varies because of a particular school and a particular area, not so much of particular school type lah. So I think more or less the home environment, the community support actually also play a very important role. I mean, they memorize the Chinese characters, so can they memorize the words in English and Malay too for dyslexia children? So they could to a certain extent for English, because English, some of the words are sight words. So it's quite possible to memorize English words. And also at the early stage of reading, a lot of words are monosyllabic in English. So it's pretty possible to memorize those words because monosyllabic words are pretty short. Yeah, but for Malay reading, this will become a constraint very soon because Malay is longer. we rarely have monosyllabic words. You can count the monosyllabic words in Malay using your fingers. We really have less than 10 monosyllabic words here. Most of the words are bi and multisyllabic. So as the children go to standard 1, standard 2, the words that they see is already like multisyllabic because they already have the imbuhan, the prefix, suffix, all is like long suku kata. So when you have long suku kata like that, it's actually not that easy to memorize. You really have to use decoding here in order to read proficiently. Very, very smart kids, they probably still memorize, but somehow the fluency will be less compared to other kids who are able to do natural decoding. Okay, so I think that's all for tonight. So thank you everyone for your participation. That is a very cute question, the trend of using very short form. So they can remember letters, but they couldn't read. And our study also show quite consistently that the letter recognition is actually not related to phonological processing. All the kids that we assess here, 300 of them here, I think almost 300 could actually name letters. It's only very, very small subset, maybe less than 30 of them cannot name letter consistently. Most of them could, even if they have dyslexia. So letter naming is actually not a very good indicator to know if a child have problem in reading. It only shows indicator on the cognitive ability, but not so much on decoding and reading. Okay, so thank you for your participation. So I wish to see you again in our next webinar. In March, we have another webinar is for autism, and I forgot the date, if I'm not mistaken, is the 4th of March. And in that webinar, we are going to explore about different sensory support for children with autism. And then on 12th March or 14th March, I can't remember, we are going to have a talk on mathematics skills. The topic is why some children cannot do 3 plus 4. So we are going to talk about the simple concept of mathematics learning and teaching. That is it's a very special webinar in conjunction to International Pi Day, which is the International Mathematics Day. And we are also in the process to schedule another webinar for dyslexia in March. And in that webinar, MBU webinar, we probably will share with you our English dyslexia finding. Okay, so hope to see you all again in March. So while those who are celebrating Chinese New Year, I wish you Gong Xi Fa Cai and Happy Chinese New Year. And those who are celebrating the Ramadan month, I wish you a nice, enjoyable, and peaceful months with your family. Okay, thank you. To register for the future webinar, you can use the same link. We only have one link for the webinar registration. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.